Hello, everybody, and welcome to this amazing OpenSSF Tech Talk. Today, we're going to talk about jumpstarting your journey. We're going to be mastering open source software security development with Linux Foundation education. I want to welcome everybody here, and thanks for joining us. Uh, if you could, please take a moment to familiarize yourself with the Zoom interface. We have a Q&A button where you can submit questions for the panelists as we go along. While you're clicking around, feel free to follow us on the thing formerly known as Twitter or Mastodon or LinkedIn. Our website is an amazing way to start to get access to some of the resources that the panelists are going to be talking about today. And as always, you're welcome to sign up for the whole battery of open source and Linux and security-based training that are part of our LF education team. As a reminder, this Tech Talk is being recorded. So some housekeeping. You see this awesome QR code over on the side of our slide. Please take a moment and complete a survey at the end of the session to give us some feedback on what you enjoyed, what you'd like to see more of in future webinars. I'm going to go through and do some speaker introductions. We're going to first off have David Wheeler talk about some OpenSSF materials. We're going to have my pal Glenn from LF Education talk about what the offerings that LF Education now has. And then we're going to get some insights from a community member, Sarah Evans, who's actually a user of some of these things. We'll leave some time at the end for Q&A, and we've got some very special announcements. As a reminder, like all meetings within Linux Foundation and the OpenSSF, we are bound by the antitrust policy notice. So just take a moment and read this. If you've ever joined one of our calls, this will be very similar, very familiar to you. It speaks to we are a vendor and community neutral place where we're coming together to collaborate on furthering open source together. And then all these meetings are managed by our code of conduct. This is a set of expectations and professionalism and respect we should give to each other. So please take a moment to review that. And if you have any questions, please feel free to follow up with staff. As I mentioned, the Q&A button, it's an awesome little dialogue button on the sides of your Zoom interface. Please submit any questions as we're going along there. That'll be delight, and we'll get to those at the end. So let's start off. I'm Krobe. I do security stuff on the internet. I am now the chief architect for the Open Source Security Foundation and have been involved with the OpenSSF since its beginning, 4 years now. And I've been doing upstream open source security for over a decade. I'm going to let Mr. Dr. Wheeler introduce himself very briefly.
Absolutely. So I'm David Wheeler, Director of Open Source Supply Chain Security at the Linux Foundation. I've been doing security, how to develop secure software for literally decades. And I also teach at George Mason University, and I've got various credentials if you care about that. And I'll be talking in a moment about LFD 121 and some related materials.
Excellent.
I don't know and Glenn's next.
Our friend Glenn's up next.
Yes, thank you very much. So, very present in the open source community. Together with my brother, I run the Security Knowledge Framework, a project that 10 years ago already started to help and train and educate developers about how to write secure software, but also how to verify. So it's a very holistic view. Last more than 10 years, actually also a trainer, companies, universities, all that good stuff. And I'm here to share some good gems with you guys.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. And next up, my friend Sarah.
Hello, I'm Sarah Evans. Currently, I am working at Dell Technologies, and we are an organization, a premier member of OpenSSF. So I'll be speaking to you a little bit today about what is our experience as a consumer and an implementing organization, bringing in some of these educational tools into our organization. But my background, I actually started out in education. And so I find that in the technology space, I lean on that quite frequently. And I have a passion for talking with others and mentoring in their developing education and to accomplish the career development goals that they're working towards. So very excited to be here today to talk about both my current technology work and then also just help as a community member advocate for education opportunities.
Excellent. Thank you, panelists. I'm looking forward to an amazing time together. Let's start off with Dr. Wheeler. He's going to talk a little bit about some of the materials that the Open Source Security Foundation has put together. And as you get to moving along in your presentation, just go ahead and say next, and I'll forward the slides.
Fantastic. Next. All right, so I'm going to talk real quickly about the LF Education Research Survey done earlier this year, LFD 121, and then some other OpenSSF educational materials. Next. So first of all, earlier this year, we did what we call the Secure Software Development Education Survey of 2024. The URL's bottom left there. There's what we did is we went out and surveyed a number of developers and really got some interesting results. Key findings include things like an important minority of developers aren't familiar with secure software development. Many identified a lack of training or lack of awareness about those courses as being particularly important. Next. Yeah, so this, I'm not going to walk through each of these boxes here, but these are just some of the highlights. If you see that report, you can see both those highlights and a lot of details to that back it up and explain what's going on. But I'd like to just highlight a few of those. Middle column, second row, it notes that 53% of professionals haven't taken a course in secure software development. That varies depending on field and experience. For example, in systems operations overall, that went up to 72%. And the largest single reason was simply a lack of awareness of any good courses. On the top left, it notes that 28% of professionals directly involved in software development are not familiar with secure software development. That's especially true if you move one over to the right, where developers with less than 1 year of experience report the highest lack of familiarity, 75%. You might think that, oh, well, if the universities just teach this all, it means that the folks who've been around a while don't know. But thankfully, the folks coming in from colleges and universities and so on, or boot camps or whatever, they will have it. No, they don't. And so we've got a broad lack of knowledge about this important area. Next. Yeah, and sadly, this lack of knowledge in software developers specifically is leading us to vulnerabilities. Most universities and colleges don't require it. Forrester's study found that 1 out of the top 24 CS schools required it in their undergraduate programs, and 43% of security vulnerabilities, breaches, according to Verizon, are due to insecure software development practices. Now, there have been calls for tools, and tools are great, but not by themselves. They have false positives, they have false negatives, and so you have to have educated developers to use tools effectively. If you give me a paintbrush, I do not become a painter. If you give a developer a tool, but they don't have the knowledge necessary to use it and understand it, it won't help. Next. So specifically for helping our software developers learn how to develop secure software, we've developed a course, Developing Secure Software, LFD 121. It's a free course, about 2 days of material, free certificate of completion, and the audience is software developers. It's online, on demand, highly rated, and it's developed by us, the Open Source Security Foundation. And the idea is that teaches the fundamentals of developing secure software. Although we do focus in the OpenSSF on open source, including the use of open source, the fundamentals, frankly, it doesn't matter. The attackers don't care what the licenses are. So the fundamentals of developing secure software apply to everybody. Accessible, and see that link for more information. Next. LFD 121, it's active. It's not a passive course. We've got quizzes throughout each of those sections to help you help make sure that you've learned the material. And we have optional interactive labs to provide some hands-on practices. Now, the labs are a recent addition. We have just recently added a number, and we do intend to have more on the way. But please go take it out. We do encourage you to try out the AA optional labs. Next. So here's the basic outline of what LFD 121 covers. Part 1, requirements, design, reuse, because even if you aren't not developing open source software, you're almost certainly using a lot of it. And so reusing external software today is really, really important. How do you implement software so that it is less likely to be vulnerable, and the impacts will be less? And finally, how do you verify it? Various other more specialized topics, things like threat modeling and verification and various kinds of tools. Next. Now, I'm going to try to anticipate one question. Well, what about AI and ML? If AI and ML can generate code, doesn't that just eliminate the need to learn any of this? No. Well, first of all, traditional vulnerabilities can seriously impact AI and ML systems. ChatGPT had 2 serious vulnerabilities in 2023 that were not AI special. They just impacted it. And the bigger problem is that, frankly, security is kind of a blind spot for most AML. The survey found that 73% of the folks in data science had a lack of awareness, lack of training in developing secure software. If you're in that particular subspecies, this is not a topic that you've normally focused on. LFD 121 also provides a basic introduction to AML security issues. And finally, turns out that at least currently, the studies all show that AI is currently generating code with more vulnerabilities than the humans. This shouldn't be a surprise. What do you think it's trained on? And these systems don't understand truly the code. So it doesn't mean we can't use these tools, but it does mean that humans must detect and counter vulnerabilities generated by AI, which means we need the humans managing these systems to know more. Next. So if nothing else, what I want to encourage is that if you develop software and don't already know how to develop secure software, we will encourage you to take the LFD 121 course. We will encourage all software developers to enroll. So if you know someone else who develops software, tell them about it. And there's a QR code, there's a link to get you right there. Next. Now, I've been focusing particularly on LFD 121 because I think it's a great example. Both, it's a course that we think is very general. Lots of software developers should be interested in it, but it's not the only course the OpenSSF releases. We have a course on securing projects with OpenSSF Scorecard. We have another one on use of SigStore, which is our approach to digital signatures that I think is much, it's a different approach. It's much easier to verify than older approaches. If you're curious about any of those courses, you can go there. You can learn more about the courses. We do have other courses in development. We've got a course for software development managers. And the longer term, we do intend to finish and release one on security architecture. For more about OpenSSF in general, please visit openssf.org. And I'm just talking about educational materials, but let me just quickly note that really it should be unsurprising that there's a need for these cyber-related skills, education, and frankly, it's widely known that we have a gap, we have a lack of people with these knowledge, with these skills, with this training. The EU Cyber Resilience Act, for example, specifically talks about the need for increased skills, upskilling, and so on. US has a number of documents similarly about improving the workforce, the need for education. I'm sure that's true for many, many other locations. It's a global issue. And so we want to do our part in making sure that we've got educational materials available so that the people who need to learn this kind of information can easily learn it. And hopefully that's going to queue up Glenn, who's next.
Thank you, David. Glenn, let's take it away, sir.
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, so first I wanted to actually announce, because maybe it's not known yet to everybody. So I'm here to share that great insight. The foundation, the Linux Foundation training certification actually is now rebranded to education. I think it's a great way forward because it encapsulates way better what we're doing, what we stand for. So now you can find us and see us as education. And indeed, to further, go over what David Wheeler was saying, we also are working on a very interesting and great initiative to make those gaps actually visible. We're not yet released it, but I do want to give some insights that we're working on it, and it's the Global Cybersecurity IT Skill Framework. So what actually are we doing here? the idea is that we defined like 15 type of roles. Take, for example, the cybersecurity analyst, or the architect, or the web developer, or the DevOps type of roles, and many more, of course. And we defined basically and looked at, okay, but what are like the cybersecurity responsibilities of this person? And for example, when you're like a basic, starter, like 2 years of experience, what do we expect of this person to know about cybersecurity? And why are we creating this framework? Well, we noticed, just like David was saying, that a lot of companies and organizations really struggle to identify the gaps. And with this one, you actually see, oh, somebody with junior experience should actually be able to know these type of topics. Or if you're intermediate or advanced, then these additional topics and skill sets should be available, right? So yeah, it is really designed for covering really a broad job role descriptions, like also project management is on there. Also, they need to know about security and secure design principles and requirements and all the good stuff. Yeah, so it's really tailored, like I said, from low level to entry level to a senior level. And it really provides organization guidance like, I see my people are missing these type of skill sets. Hey, cool, OpenSSF or the Linux Foundation offer these courses for free. Or in some cases, like paid courses, because they are really more in depth and more advanced and very specific. And and of course, also for some of them, you can get like awesome certifications, right? That really proves you mastering that skill set. And also what I want to notice, it is, really going to be like a living thing, right? We don't want to just push out a framework and call it a day. This is something that we actively will further develop also with the other leading industry organization companies to further develop this to become like a living document, right? Because yeah, we notice this is very valuable, it's missing, and it can really help and guide people to get on track and in the right direction and knowing what type of trainings they lack and they should take. Because like David said in his earlier presentation and slides, we need really to educate people very quickly in this environment with new technologies popping up. So it's key important. But yeah, so this is something you can expect from the Linux Foundation pretty soon to be released officially. Yeah, and for people who already want to know more, you can always contact me and I can share some more insights, or maybe you want to collaborate. So yeah, next slide. Yeah, of course, when we talk about the Linux Foundation, what we also do in the education space, we have like a lot of trainings, not only about cybersecurity, of course, I am the cybersecurity guy in LF, but just want to also highlight and mention we have like very awesome other courses like Linux, kernel development, security in Linux, but also Kubernetes. And again, we have a lot of free courses, paid courses, official certifications where you can become a CUBE astronaut and those type of awesome things. But definitely have a look at the catalog, because you will find a lot of good stuff in there. Next one. Yeah, I also want to mention it's only not only that we do courses that you can enroll yourself doing your own pace, but we also do offer like instruction-led trainings where somebody like me, if you pick cybersecurity, you will see me and I'm delivering then really a tailored in-class course about, well, in this case, security fundamentals or other type of security training. So we also do instructor-led trainings. Next one. Yes. Yeah, the other thing that I want to mention, and again, it's all about sharing experience and knowledge and, how I and we see, in this case, developers, software developers should actually build and create secure software. But even when we looking at, the skill set and we learn them, sometimes it's still hard to actually put them in the right order and the right steps to actually perform them. And for that one, we also created this AppSec strategy document that basically explains to already a sort of intermediate, secure, aware developer how that person actually can do a proper assessment. Because you work as maybe a security champion or a secure developer or the person who needs to tackle the security in the organization. And with this one, we actually have written down with examples the methodology of actually going through like a project or a code base. And what are the steps? What are the tell signs? What are the things that you want to create, for example, in that whole journey, sort of say. So, for example, you see also a bit on the left, first you create a requirement traceability matrix. So how does that look like? Then we do a threat modeling exercise. How does that look like? Then a critical assessment, a logic flaw identification, code and root analysis, because you want to see, okay, which like endpoints are I'm exposing and how does that flow in terms also of business logic. Different type of tooling that you can use to assist you in doing a proper white box security check, right? So using a static code analyzer, dynamic, SCA, all that good stuff. So we really go and we wrote out some nice examples on how it should look like, what the things are doing, what are the tell signs, and what do we want to achieve with these steps. Yeah, to give you a structural approach on, doing this stuff in your organization. It is also an open source project, so this we do accept like pull requests, improvements. Yeah, and we really think this can be a very useful guide and approach for organizations to make it more structured and get best value for time out of it, right? Next one. Yeah, so what think one back. Your trigger finger was too triggering. Yes. So the other thing is what we also created is the security knowledge framework. And what we did there is like a requirement generation tool. So in here, basically what we also noticed, developers had a bit of a struggle defining actually what are my security requirements for the features I'm developing. And normally when you look at the standards that are out there, they're like bookworks, right? And you have to go through it, maybe read it, select like, oh yeah, this could be interesting, this. So we basically optimized that step and we created in the security knowledge framework, the requirement tool. And basically per topic, you can go over like, this requirement is applicable for my feature, this one. And you can select them and then you can make an export to make those your additional non-functional requirements for the feature you're building. And I think that's also key important. Security starts with the design, right? It's not something you can slap on afterwards. It needs to be embedded in the design, in the architecture of your application to really make it more secure, right? So we have a tool available as well for doing that and helping you. And the other one is, of course, the security knowledge framework itself, where we have around like 70 labs where you actually can deploy a vulnerable application and then start, learning about what a hacker also does. So take, for example, the local file inclusion, the SQL injection, race conditions. I mean, all the good stuff, the easy and the advanced stuff you will actually find in there. Because again, our methodology is and our principle is a holistic approach. Not only learn about the design patterns and how to implement them securely, but also able to understand and verify to a certain level that the implementation that you did is actually correct. So you really have a holistic, skill level approach here as a developer, and better able to protect your applications, right? Maybe next one. This is the example where you can launch those labs. There are write-ups as well if you're really stuck. So it explains you really step by step what to do, what's happening, why it's happening, and basically how attackers can abuse certain type of functionality that you build without any security requirements right in mind, and how vulnerable and easy it actually is to leverage that and get like full access or really create a lot of chaos in your application. Next one. Yeah, that's just an example of the write-ups. So here you see for every lab we have a write-up. We also have like different coding languages. So we currently have labs in Python, Node.js, and Java. So you can even pick your favorite programming language and start learning about cybersecurity. Next one. Yeah. We have a lot of courses and trainings that you can find, like I said, on the full catalog. The free labs you can find as well with the write-ups, the security requirement tool, and of course also the AppSec strategy methodology. I think there was somewhere also a slide about the things we're working on, maybe, nope. Yeah, this one. Okay, it's okay, we will do this one. So what I also want to highlight here, that we have already quite some existing courses. Some of them are free. For example, the OWASP Top 10 Security Threats. So also here a bit of threat modeling, doing some labs, some command injection, SQL injection. It's all very interactive labs as well, so that's awesome. And then of course, the paid courses and also the course that currently are in development. So we have a very detailed threat modeling course, security deployments and DevOps, and security testing and code review. There are still many more to come because again, we believe in, you know, this holistic view, and the end goal is creating like an all-capturing learning path about becoming security champions, right? That really knows on an infra ops level, threat modeling, secure coding, all the good stuff that you need to know, that you're actually have weapons slash defense mechanisms to protect against the attacks that are, you know, happening and
Great.
will happen.
Thank you, Glenn. I
So,
appreciate the update and all the work that the SKF and the education team do. Let
thank
us
you very
move
much.
on. Sarah.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what it was like from an enterprise experience to start to incorporate some of the Linux Foundation education and OpenSSF. And then we'll also talk about, you know, maybe you're not working at an organization that offers training. Obviously, this training is available online, but what are some other things to think about as you're building your skill set in security as a software developer? All right, next slide. Right, so there's kind of three ways that we've started to adopt the OpenSSF and Linux Foundation trainings. But also, most large enterprises have an internal secure software development program. So this is going to include required employee training, understanding the software development lifecycle. They're going to have security requirements for the software that's being developed internally. Dell is no different. I am fortunate to get to work with a lot of our security education for software engineers internally. And these are great teams. They're constantly looking at ways to expose the software engineers within our company to you know, hot topics, and then also foundations and helping developers grow in their career. So if you do work at an enterprise, you may be taking advantage already of some of the internal enterprise training that you have. Then if you're the company you work for is a member of the Linux Foundation or a member of OpenSSF, depending on the membership level, they also make available access to certifications. And so this was something that Dell found to be a very valuable member benefit, that we could connect our internal training programs for our software developers with courses that Glenn was just talking about in the Linux Foundation. And this year, as an example, the topic that a lot of our security engineers were interested in was Kubernetes security and getting certificates in that. So that is something that we were able to offer to our developers as a membership benefit through our Linux Foundation and OpenSSF membership. And then, as David was showing with the Linux Foundation 121, that secure software development course, there's free courses available that an enterprise can bring into their learning management system so that they can train and track the progress, even though it's available to take online. Sometimes it's also nice to be able to make these software available internally. I worked to get the LFD 121 connected to our internal learning management system. The process was very smooth. And actually, they gave me a timeline of how long it would take, and they blew that timeline out of the water because the folks at the Linux Foundation and then also my internal teams had such a good and easy experience connecting those things. So I would encourage you to, if you look in your own company's internal management system and you don't see the connection to these courses, to talk to the folks in your OpenSSF or Linux Foundation membership to see how those things can get pulled in. All right, next slide. All right, so this just really talks about the benefit of education in security as we're coding, especially in open source software. And I'm making a statement, more secure open source software stands for a more secure software supply chain. And so with open source software, we're all developing and innovating on the same code base. And that means that a vulnerability upstream can have an outsized impact across the enterprises and other projects that use it. So that's one of the reasons that Dell participates in OpenSSF, is because we know the importance of contributing security back into this ecosystem that we all share and depend on. When you participate in open source software development, then the projects to which you contribute are a part of that supply chain. And with the advent of AI adoptions, if you're contributing in part from your role in AI, that is also a burgeoning part of the supply chain as well. So that's why I think it's so valuable to take people who are specialized in software development and not require them to stop being a software developer and become a security person, but rather build forward on your foundation of software development and add those security skills, which is very, very powerful. We need people in software development who can speak and understand and contribute to security in open source software development. And then the final point I would like to make is that when we learn and apply those principles, it helps reduce those downstream security impacts on our software supply chain. In security, we like to say it's not if, but when. So I don't think that the goal is ever zero, but we can do much better. And so by linking arms together, by taking free courses like the Linux Foundation Secure Software Development and making a conscious effort to raise our security awareness, it really does improve the products and services we all use. All right, thanks, Crow, but that was, I think, my last slide.
Excellent. Thank you, panelists. Now is the amazing time where we're going to have questions from the audience. I'll start us off while everyone is busily typing away with the Q&A link. Thinking about these foundational skills. I mean, we talked about, Glenn mentioned there's some advanced classes, and David mentioned a lot of the fundamental things. Let's say that I'm a developer today. Is there value in looking at any of these materials? What kind of what benefit would I get for me as an experienced developer to do some of these things? We'll start with David.
Okay. Yes. Okay. I want to make sure I'm not muted before I start talking. So the short answer is that if you develop software today, you are having an impact on every single one of the users of that software, both directly and often indirectly, because nowadays software often builds on other software. Some software systems make calls and requests to other services outside. And so vulnerabilities in your software can have an outsized impact negatively. The good news is that by being proactive, taking steps to greatly reduce the likelihood of vulnerabilities, you're going to have a really great positive impact. A lot of the vulnerabilities are well-known common types of problems. And so once you learn what they are, learn how to generally design software to be secure, it's one of those things that keeps giving you benefits. Every year you'll use this information. Next year you'll use this information, and you can build on it. And so it basically provides tremendous value to anyone who uses your software, and it provides value to you. It's the kind of stuff that you can build on through the rest of your career.
Excellent. Thank you. We have a question from the audience. Does an organization need to be a member of the OpenSSF to use this free class? And I'm thinking the question might be thinking about the SCORM Connect option, possibly. So, David, might you be able to talk a little bit about the usage around the class for members and non-members?
Yeah. So first of all, anyone can take the LFD 121 course. It's available online for free. You do not need an LMS. You do not need anything special. It is free to all. If you want to integrate it, now a lot of organizations, particularly larger ones, have a learning management system. That's what LMS stands for. And that enables them to keep track of what their employees are taking, what's their current status, set up goals for a year, that kind of thing. If you are a premier member of the OpenSSF, that is free. We also have a separate program for accredited, I think it's educational facilities. We're really thinking about colleges and universities. We will integrate that in. You have to talk with us first. I don't know about LMS integrations other than those two cases. I think I would say is if you're interested, go to the OpenSSF website. It will give you a link to request, and we can talk and find out what the options are. What I tell people, though, is I'm so glad, by the way, that Dell had a good experience integration. Let me be a little honest opening the Komodo. LMS integrations depends on the LMS. Some are easy, some are less easy. It's one of those areas where there are standards, but different systems don't implement them all in exactly the same way. So I encourage folks, if you are thinking about an LMS integration, send some folks into the courses right now while you're working out how to do the LMS integration, and then in parallel, look at LMS integration. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it takes a while. And if it's one of those where it takes a while, it's much easier to make the case for it if you've had some people already taking the courses and say, oh yes, everybody in our organization should take it. Let's do the LMS integration to make that an easier thing for us to do, to roll out organization-wide.
Next question from the audience is, and I'm going to reframe it a little bit. The questioner is asked, saying that they're a member of the Linux Foundation, but thinking more broadly, all of our projects, and the OpenSSF is not an exception, have a lot of activity going on. Are those, who's allowed to participate in those working groups and projects and SIGs? Member or no membership?
I can start. So my experience with the Linux Foundation and all of the projects and other foundations are that it is an open and transparent community. So anyone who wants to take their time and contribute it to open source, they can. Where I start to see companies or contributors seek membership is when they want to help advocate for the strategy of a project, or they want to help drive some operational elements. And so as an example, one thing that Dell does as a premier member of OpenSSF is we have a member who sits on the governing board and helps kind of drive some of that kind of the business operations side of the foundation. But taking a step back, the actual contributions to those special interest groups and projects and working groups is open to all.
Excellent. Thank you. Before I move on, you want to add anything, David?
Sure. So I very much, first of all, I want to kind of, absolutely agree with everything that Sarah just said. They're very much available to all. Anybody who wants to contribute, any changes, proposals, absolutely are welcome. I will say, though, that most organizations find that some open source software projects are especially important to them strategically, tactically, however you want to measure that. And so in those cases in particular, it starts to make more and more sense for them to either just simply become more active technically, or actually join, as members of those relevant groups and so on. Typically, some things cost money, some things don't. The way that a lot of these foundations work is, the technical direction is whatever, the folks who are involved in it technically, but we also want to pool money together to focus funds on certain resources. Those who are members get to help make those decisions on how to place the funds. But all are welcome, truly, and we would if you're not already involved, which means you're asking, which is implied by, I think, by asking the question, please do get involved. It reaps a lot of benefits.
Agreed. And I'll encourage the audience, please use the Q&A feature of Zoom if you have any questions. I have a couple more queued up here. And while we're at this little pause, I want to highlight to everybody, we are hosting a first of its kind SOS Fusion conference coming up in just a couple weeks. That'll be down in near Atlanta, Georgia. And we're going to have experts like the folks here on the panel, our other community members, security researchers and developers and students all participating together in this amazing conference focused around helping improve the security of open source software. So I would encourage you to consider going to SOS Fusion. It's going to be a great event. Let's move on to our next question. I think people grok what LFD 121 is intended for, but there's a question. What if somebody is like a product manager or a program manager? Are there other offerings available for people that are non-developers that they still can kind of get access from some of this goodness? I'll start with David, and then maybe Glenn might have some additional thoughts.
Happy to, although frankly, one of our moderators should probably be answering this as well. So Krob and I have been actually working very much on the management one in particular, because you're absolutely right. That's a fair point. Some managers come from a background of software development, but that doesn't mean they necessarily understand how security looks from the point of view of a manager. And of course, many managers don't have a software development background. So we are actively working on a course for managers. It is intentionally shorter because we understand a number of managers have very limited time. But we want to distill things down to the essence, the most important for that particular role. I guess I should more broadly note it. I mean, Glenn listed all these different courses. It's one of the challenges of developing courses is, you have different people, different roles, different backgrounds. What are they trying to learn? So there's never an opportunity for one course for absolutely everybody in the universe. You need different kinds of courses for different kinds of situations. And so that's a particular gap we're well aware of, and we are working on it. Krob, maybe I should ask you to answer anything before we move on to whoever else in the panel.
No, I think you summarized it well. Again, this is a class focused around the manager persona, whether you're a project manager, product manager, program manager, just to try to help them. Anyone that leads teams of developers, this should be useful information, and it ties into a lot of our other work. Glenn, are you aware of anything specific to like the manager level person or project manager that might be beneficial as part of our portfolio?
Well, I would say like the OS top 10, for example, that's a good introduction. I would say still easy to follow. Again, everything has write-ups as well, so it's really taking you step by step through even the active labs, for example. And it's really getting an idea of the playing field and actually how easy some of these vulnerabilities are to exploit, right? And honestly, normally when I do trainings and I do have project managers or product owners or that type of people with that role in the audience, yeah, they're actually shocked that it's that easy, right? So I would say something brief, something like the OS Top 10 doesn't take too long, but it is really an eye opener. And yeah, again, to come back at the thing we're working on at the Linux Foundation, the global cybersecurity IT skill set, we also have defined there the role of the project manager. What is their and her skill to know and be able to help and strengthen the team and making sure that security, like I said, is really there and embedded in what they do and how they, plan their sprints, for example, in their project, right? because unfortunately, I see quite a lot still companies planning 90% of their sprints and in their capacity planning, yeah, full with features. And I'm like, no, that's not how you build secure software, right? There's more in the quality area than only security. That should also be in there, but 90% features, no. So again, we did have identified the same gap that we need to pay attention. And again, like you said, those type of roles, they all need their own courses, right? Because it's a different audience with different needs and also different skills that are required. So yeah, I'm very excited to that soon we can release this awesome framework to really help and give guidance, to the people. So
Me too. I think that's going to be a very useful artifact that we're helping the education folks collaborate on. While you still have the microphone, Glenn, the panel has inspired several questions around AI ML. So, kind of thinking about our available coursework, are you aware of anything today that we have that's focused around AI ML security for training?
not really specific to security, but yes, AI and machine learning for sure. Um, but again, it's also again a quite evolving, technology area, right? Because the type of attacks, it also really depends how your AI pipeline looks like. Are you doing really building the whole model yourself, or are you consuming a model? So in there, I see still a lot of organizations are still seeking and looking what could be a better and good to the point guidance there. And like I'm a very big fan of the attack Mitre frameworks and the artifacts and content they produce. They also wrote some about AI and machine learning. Yeah, and I think unfortunately, sort of, it's indeed the fundamentals of security, right? It is being sort of paranoid, defensive programming, and yeah, thinking outside of the box, not only happy flow, but also the bad flow, right? Um, but yeah, there are some nice hacks and tricks that I've seen so far with AI, data manipulation. And so we're still in this sort of, discovery phase, right? I would say. So there are some guidance, but I would say, yeah, not that concrete yet because it does change quite quickly.
Sarah, do you want to add on? We have an active AI ML working group. Anything you want to add from that perspective? Ways people could participate?
Yes, and just before we touch on that, because I do want to talk about that. One of the things I've noticed that's consistent between software development and AI ML has been this idea of thinking about your threat model. And so I think I saw that there was a threat model class, Glenn, on the LF education. And what I'm finding is a lot of those use cases around AI ML do require kind of understanding, that relationship between threat modeling and the folks creating that AI ML application and innovation. And so I think that's something that can carry over as well. And then from the AI ML working group, one of the things that we've been doing is thinking about how we've seen software and the software supply chain develop over time. One of the things that we saw was there was this innovation first around an emerging technology of open source software, and eventually we learned we needed to add and build in some of these security capabilities, and we're actively doing that today. I see the same thing happening with AI ML systems. So in the same way that we're trying to figure out how to innovate and how to adopt this technology, there's also going to be future security supply chain elements around the AI supply chain. And one of the ways I see this happening is in operations. So a lot of folks may be familiar with the term DevOps. And DevOps over time has become something called DevSecOps. So one of the things that we're looking at is how can we understand what machine learning operations or even LLM operations looks like, and then how can we use what we've learned already about the software supply chain and operations and start to apply and create reference architectures for, an LLM SecOps or ML SecOps. Additionally, what does implementing that look like in an organization? Do your DevSecOps teams work with your data scientists and your ML engineers? How does that work? So we're spending a lot of time thinking about that. So I could probably go on and on about the AI/ML working group, but that's one of the things that I see is that if you're studying security with LF education and you're thinking about threat modeling and you're rolling what you know forward to use cases of what you've seen in the software supply chain and how you can advocate and help influence for the better the AI/ML supply chain, I think a lot of what we know will roll forward and resonate with this new emerging technology.
Excellent. And that actually, you want to go, David?
Yeah, because I've got some comments as well. So the LFD 121 course actually does have a section specifically on AI, ML, and security, because there are some things known and people are applying this technology. So we want to give people the basics. So we do identify things like, if you're, first of all, what is adversarial machine learning? And what are the kinds of, and what are the categories of attacks? Basically talk about, evasion, which is inferring the wrong thing, poisoning, learning the wrong thing, and loss of confidentiality, which is revealing the wrong thing. And then there's subcategories of loss of confidentiality. And there has been some work on some of these. I mean, the good news is that we do know some things, and we do talk about at least some of the main things that are known. That said, there are some things that are not known yet. What a lot of people want to do is just, perfectly counter evasion. In other words, adversarial attacks, adversarial inputs of machine learning. Right now, we don't have good answers for that. We can point you to techniques that can help you against naive attackers. But frankly, for some areas, we can tell you this is what you should do, and we'll try to tell you that. For some areas, this is still a research area, and there are groups that are working on trying to address that. And we can tell you ways to help evaluate it, to evaluate your approaches. And please get involved with the organizations and groups trying to make things better.
Excellent. I'll take this opportunity to address the last question from the audience. We've had a couple people asking, how do I volunteer? And is anyone aware of internships? And I'll say patches are always welcome, like any good open source project. The OpenSSF, we thrive on the contributions of engaged and interested volunteers. So if you find a topic you're interested in, broadly, the foundation has 10 umbrella working groups that house different topics of interest, like developer best practices, vulnerability management, AI, ML, supply chain security, package repo security. So we have a lot of different areas. So if you're interested in any of those topics, go show up to a meeting, listen in, raise your hand and ask a question. Engage one of the people in the call in a conversation. Now, from an internship perspective, we are looking to partner with the broader LF mentoring program. So our diversity, equity, and inclusion working group is going to be spearheading this effort to try to help identify opportunities where people could potentially work in a kind of a mentor-student relationship with some of these projects. So keep an eye out and ear to the ground as we make some announcements in the future. And there's just incalculable ways to find something you're interested in and participate meaningfully. And I'll remind everybody, please hit the QR code up, respond to our survey, let us know how we did, what you liked, what you'd like to know more of, and potentially give us some suggestions on future things. And Glenn, anything else you want to add?
Yeah, well, last quick one. We got another question about the key project tools that you would recommend for practicing your security skills. For example, JuShop, Burp, WebGoat. And I would say all of those are actually great. I would, for example, start with the JuShop because it's very easy. It starts low, like very simple things first, and it builds up again also to very advanced type of vulnerabilities, right? They also come with write-ups, so it's really good to get started. Similar for the project of myself, the security knowledge framework, easy to advance. It has write-ups. And I would say when you're ready for a bit more advanced stuff, then you can definitely go to the Burp. They also have now an academy. It's also a penetration testing tool for intercepting HTTP proxy and intercepting HTTP communication. So definitely something you will need when you're doing your security testing and the implementation of your amazing design patterns and security requirements. But yeah, there are many good free courses, free material that you can start right off with great guidance and good quality tools to get a good grip on it. Yeah.
Excellent. I want to take a moment to thank our panelists for donating their time and expertise to the community. And I'd like to remind everybody that this was a recorded session and it will be available shortly. So keep an eye out to our OpenSSF social feeds where we'll be announcing that. So both the video and the slide material will be available for future review. Thank you, David. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Glenn. I appreciate all of your contributions today and ongoing with our community. And I want to thank everybody. We had over 45 people at one point attending. I want to thank you all for being interested in the topic of security and education. And I look forward to seeing you at a future webinar. Have a great day.